Welcome to Live from the Gardens, a Animorph podcast about animals and how to be a convincing Animorph. This week we'll be talking about the dragonfly and the flea, the two animals or the two main morphs we encountered in Animorphs number 21, The Threat, which is that Jake book where he turns into a dog on the cover. It's also the book we talked about last week on the Dork-Bajir Chronicles. My name is Mikhail, the host.
I'm Tessa, the expert.
And I'm Braden. The Babadook.
The Babadook? Is that the cousin of the Babadook? Is he like the rude cousin of the Babadook? It's the Babadook? Nice.
Babadook. Yeah.
We have one piece of fan mail. This piece of fan mail is from Michaela Campbell, and it says, I was on your website, and it was loading slower than I would have liked. I had the same problem and recently started using, and now my website loads lightning fast. Website optimized.today/faster.
Nice. Michaela, good to hear from you. She's been a long fan of the pod.
Yeah, I get a message from Michaela every week, I think,
She's
through the website.
Our biggest commenter on the website.
It's always the same one, though.
I mean, she really wants us to optimize our website, you guys. Maybe we should listen to her.
I know.
She probably understands cloud storage and how that works.
Also, where to get cheap Cialis, or at least knockoff Chinese Cialis. Anyways, the dragonfly. So Tessa, what is the main difference between a dragonfly and a damselfly?
Well, the damselfly lives in the castle and the dragonfly guards the castle. It's a good joke.
It's a Shrek reference. The real answer is that although they look very similar, dragonflies, you can always tell it's a dragonfly because when they stop flying and they land, their wings are out, kind of like a helicopter. Whereas with a damselfly, they're back, kind of like a flying ant.
Oh, so between moths and butterflies. Dragonflies' wings are horizontal and damselflies are vertical.
Hot.
Sure.
Nice.
Sure. All right, Brayden, how big was the wingspan of the biggest dragonfly we think that has ever existed?
So is we think it was a dragonfly?
No, we think that it's the biggest one, but it's the only fossil record. It's the biggest fossil record, essentially, is what I'm trying to say.
Well, the largest dragonfly on record is Robert Dragonfly.
Didn't he co-write the Gates cycle?
Yes.
The Gates of Fantasy, Gates of Destiny?
Yeah, exactly. Some people think he had wings. Some people don't. He was of the belief that he had wings, and his wingspan came in at 3 feet by his accord. But whenever he told anybody, he would also pump his eyebrows a whole lot. So it might be that he was referring to something else.
Nice.
So the biggest dragonfly we've found, it's very old, but the wingspan, now you really got to picture this, was 30 inches, which is 76 centimeters. So 1 foot is 12 inches. So that's like a 2.5 foot dragonfly. Compare that to a normal dragonfly, which, in North America, you're getting 3, a big giant one would be 4 inches.
God in heaven.
Wow.
Anyways, let's have fun sleeping tonight because that gave me nightmares. That's horrifying to think about. This one's for Tessa. So dragonflies can generate an enormous amount of force for their size, or they call it a weight to power ratio. So how much force, so how many G's, which is atmospheric pressure, essentially, is created during flight?
What did they say? A rocket ship going up is I want to say 5 Gs or
Sure.
so?
That's not a bad guess, yeah.
A dragonfly is 7.
7.
Because they're so small. 7
Okay.
Gs. They're so small, but every time a dragonfly flaps its wings, it pushes the earth down a little bit. And that's why the earth is not smooth.
It's because of dragonflies exclusively. All right. So apparently dragonflies can generate, just from flying in a straight line, 4 Gs for their body.
What?
That's only 1 G less than a rocket ship. Damn.
And it's only 1 G less than an LTE.
An LTE, that's not that dating website you're on, Mikhail.
Yeah, it's ladies touch everything.
That's not a dating site. That's a movie
Yeah, there's
site.
not a lot of second dates. Let me just put it that way. No, so they can generate 4 Gs flying in a straight line. On a turn, 9 Gs. Now, to give you some perspective, a typical human who's like healthy in like the prime of their life, 5 Gs.
So none of us then.
5 Gs, and they'll probably pass out.
Dragonflies are made out of iron, basically.
Actually, they're made out of chitin.
Chitin. It's not pronounced chitin.
What do you think it's pronounced?
It's chitin. No, no one's arguing over that. It's always been chitin. Okay, Brayden. What is the name of the structure on the nymph, like the dragonfly nymph's lower jaw that allows them or enables them to trap and eat prey?
The device on its bottom jaw allows it to trap and eat prey.
Like, what's it called and what does it look like?
It's called an R phone. It's like a really cheap knockoff iPhone, and they just use it to call takeout.
So basically they don't hunt at all, but when they become dragonflies is when they start hunting?
Yeah, because, like, I didn't have a joke for that, actually. Yeah.
Okay, so it's actually called, I think we'll all enjoy this, a labium.
No.
Yeah, it's real. What's even more real is what it actually looks like. So a nymph of a dragonfly, often, it kind of looks like well, there's a lot of different kinds, but for the sake of argument, imagine like a dragonfly that's kind of fatter and like an uglier color and no wings. That's a nymph of a dragonfly. And their labium, it kind of shoots out of the bottom of their mouth.
Oh my God.
And it's like this weird like net, and it has spikes and teeth all over it, and then it like sticks under the prey and grabs them and sucks it back into their mouth. It's pretty wild. There's a lot of different types, but they all have this labium. There's a lot of different combinations of spikes and hooks and clasps and stuff.
Wait, Mikhail, can you just say like spikes and hooks and clasps again, but slower?
Spikes and hooks and clasps.
The 3 of our listeners who enjoyed that, you're welcome.
Was that good to listen to? I can't hear it through your ears.
No, I'm just saying we've got some special listeners who are real excited about this episode.
And it's Michaela Campbell once again.
Michaela. She's the biggest fan of Live from the Gardens. Michaela, you dirty
She's everywhere.
bird.
All right, Tessa, how do dragonfly nymphs move around?
Well, in 5th edition rules, every dragonfly nymph has pass through trees or transport via plants, which is like a 6th level spell, but they can cast it innately, which makes some DMs think that dragonfly nymphs should be like have a higher CR rating because of that. Yeah. But because they don't have like a lot of armor, they just have the chitin, and because their hit points are like 3, they're totally fine to throw a couple of those against your level 3 party.
Yes, real life is like D&D, as we've covered many times on this show. So obviously there's a lot of different ways that they can get around, because some of them have legs, but not all of them. Some of them are like water dwelling kind of thing. But the coolest way that they get around is, so they have gills in their erectum, and according to the article I read, dragonfly nymphs can rapidly propel themselves forward by suddenly expelling water from their anus.
Nice.
The trifecta. The tri-fucking-fecta. Labia. Erection. Anus!
So the mating for dragonflies, it's interesting in a way. So the males are extremely aggressive. That's nothing new. It'll fight off other males, classic Animal Kingdom stuff. But what happens, I don't know if you guys have ever seen this, because, I mean, it's not rare, but it's hard to spot it sometimes. What happens is the male will land, the female will land with him. Sometimes they'll already be stuck together, but the female will kind of curl into, like, her tail will curl up to touch. So they're like 69ing essentially, but her tail will curl up and touch where arguably his like belly button would be. And it makes like a heart shape of 2 different colored dragonflies a lot of the time.
I have seen this.
Yeah, they're fucking.
What? Wait, what? I've only ever seen the one with like one of them's flying and the other one's holding on to its tail.
That's part of it.
That just looks like a line. It doesn't look like a heart
Right,
shape.
no, when they land is when the actual, like, passing of the sperm happens.
Oh, I love that term for sex.
Passing of the sperm.
Passing of the sperm.
And now, watch as he begins the passing of the sperm.
People who have sex who don't have sperm, I'm sorry, but you technically don't have sex unless you just have a cup of sperm that you hand back and forth.
For some reason, I was picturing like a super fancy English Downton Abbey thing where they're like watching two people just fuck on the lawn, and then they have like a dog show style commentary where it's like, watch as Chet passes the sperm to Sheila. Excellent technique. Excellent technique.
Did you guys ever read Garfield comics?
Unfortunately.
There's a bit where John goes to the vet and he's like, oh, coffee? Don't mind if I do. And he picks up this cup that was just lying around a vet's office and swigs it. And then the hot lady vet is like, congratulations, John. You're going to give birth to a healthy litter of puppies.
That's fucked up.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Jim Davis tries to defend it by being like, oh, no, that was like fertility medicine. You know, like you would give to cows.
No. Jim Davis digs into it. He is 100% like, actually, anytime you've ever seen John drink anything, it was dog cum.
I text with him all the time. It's
At
like
least
confirmed.
Mixed with some dog cum.
John Arbuckle from Garfield Comics drinking dog sperm. That's not just terrible. It's odious.
I mean, it's canon, so like the author has confirmed it, meaning it's canon. Dumbledore is gay, so
Dumbledore drinks dog.
it's all connected.
Well, he just does that because he's a bad person.
Dumbledore won the Wizarding War. If you honestly think that because he was a bit of a meanie about it, I mean...
You know, a bit of a meanie, let a child be abused for many years and that didn't do anything to help him.
Their muggle magic love was protecting him. Fucking read the books.
Oh, that's true. All I ever watch is the porn. That's my mistake.
Harry Potter and Phil Sofer's stones.
That was so bad.
Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Loaf.
Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. It still works.
Harry Potter and the cum load of fire. Harry Potter and the... Oh, fuck. There's got to be like an hors d'oeuvre joke. Hors d'oeuvre of the penix or something.
What? I'm taking the reins away from Mikhail. This is terrible.
Harry Potter and the order of that one comic where John Arbuckle drinks dog cum.
I think that was the original name of that book, but her editors wanted to change it because they couldn't get the whole title on the front cover.
Yeah, I've heard that.
It's just too long.
I've heard that. Anyways, okay, back on track. Just to wrap up the dragonfly, there are claspers on the male's, for lack of a better word, butt, and it will actually grab the female.
For lack of a better word.
Please. This is a science podcast. Posterior.
Anyways, there's claspers on it that will grab the female's head and shove it toward what they call his second genitalia. The female will then connect her tail with the male's second or secondary genitalia, and he'll pass the sperm from his primary genitalia to his secondary genitalia, where it will be deposited into the female. Science.
Whew. Oh my god, I'm getting hot. I'm getting hot and bothered.
Well, if you thought that was hot, get ready for some flea facts.
I need a nice, cool cup of dog cum there.
Oh,
quick.
God.
Oh,
yeah,
my.
that joke's not going to die.
Nothing better than a cup of cold dog milk.
Brayden, how do flea eyes compare to dragonfly eyes?
Well, flea eyes are incredibly flat. Dragonflies just got those big round puppies with like the nice shaped, irises. Flea eyes just got weird little like misshapen buddies on just the flattest things you've ever seen. They're veritable mosquito bites. There's no dignity.
It is pretty horrible. Like when you look at close-up pictures of a flea, you're not totally wrong, actually. So fleas have what they call simple eyes, which are just one lens. So it's called a biconvex lens, which does not give them a lot And like, there are not a lot of receptors, obviously, either. So basically, the only thing that they can tell is when something changes in the light around them. So if a light turns off, or if there's a big chunk of shadow in the middle of light, they can see that. Dragonflies, on the other hand, can see in the book when they talk about how Jake can see like all around him and like new colors and stuff. That's pretty accurate, actually. So the compound eyes is like, we've proven that they're taking single images of the world, and the brain of the insect is somehow turning that into information that it can use, and we still don't know how exactly. But
if only we could morph.
I'd drink some dog cum for that.
Okay, working it into every question. Anyways, so the difference being that flea eyes are complete shit and dragonfly eyes are like bananas how awesome they are, because they can see colors that humans can't see, right?
Well, they literally say this in the book, too. Like, a dragonfly hunts, so it has to see good, whereas a flea just needs to go to the nearest warm thing and suck its blood.
True. Speaking of going to the nearest thing, Tessa, fleas are the second best jumpers in the animal kingdom. If we're talking about how far you can jump relative to how big your size, or like the size of your body is, what is the only animal considered to be a better jumper?
The elephant. Mm-hmm. The elephant can jump higher than a house.
Sure. Flea can jump 50 times the width of its body.
Houses can't jump.
Oh, God, that was awful. Fuck. Fleas can jump 50 times the length of their body. That would also mean that an elephant would have to jump a minimum of 51 elephant lengths to be a better jumper, which is horrifying to think about. The animal which is a better jumper is an insect called the frog hopper.
Oh, God, of course they gave it.
Yeah, which is just like actually not that interesting as far as answers go. It can just jump much further than an animal that size should be.
How many times versus its...
It's infinite. It never stopped. In fact, it just keeps building up speed like it's going through portals.
There's only ever been one frog jumper in the world. It just keeps jumping.
The frog hopper. Did I say frog jumper? It's frog hopper.
It's a frog hopper named God.
That's the name of my, like, young adult Christian novel.
I was just going to say young adult Christian novel.
Whose question is it? Tessa? No, Brayden. Even after fleas become adults, they can't reproduce until they do one critical part of their reproductive cycle. What is that?
Oh, fuck yeah. They gotta churn that butter, man. They gotta get one or more of their sex partners to just put it on that 3-hole and just pump the button, you know? Just keep it going until they're just ready to fucking burst, and then they don't.
Oh, shit.
Sometimes they'll make them keep it for upwards of 3 days, the sadistic fucks.
That's quite the tease.
And then they literally explode with all the cum in their bones.
Jesus Christ. The critical part of their cycle is that they need to eat blood for the first time. It's kind of funny, actually, because funny is not really the right word, but females can lay infertile eggs because it doesn't have either the female or the male thing. And they say that one of the reasons why they lay eggs before is maybe actually they're evolving to not need sex anymore. This is like a part where it's like that evolutionary step where we haven't seen it finished yet.
Oh, God. It's like the real X-Men.
Yeah, it's exactly like X-Men.
It's like that SMBC comic where it's like, since only the smartest, strongest humans breed, if I travel forward in time, I'll find a bunch of superheroes. And then they go forward. 98% of us have a spike on our penis that compromises condoms.
That actually makes perfect sense. So what happens when they eat blood for the first time is that the female ovaries like mature to the point where they can actually mate with sperm, if you want to call it that. But perhaps more interesting,
mating with sperm.
Oh, sorry, mating with sperm. Do you mean they can receive?
Yeah, that's what I mean. It doesn't have to be a whole thing.
Deliver the sperm?
It doesn't have to be a whole thing.
They're open.
You guys are missing the best part of all of this. When the male eats the blood meal, it dissolves his testicular plug.
What?
Tessa, Brayden and I Braden and I are going to have to teach you something about human sex since you've never had it. All men have a testicular plug. Tessa, fleas are known vectors for disease, meaning like they're known carriers. What is perhaps the most famous case of a disease caused by fleas that like seriously affected human history?
Christopher Columbus got syphilis when he fucked a flea.
Classic syphilis.
So Christopher Columbus invented syphilis.
Yeah, Christopher Columbus did some fucked up shit.
Because of fleas. It was not very cool. But children celebrate him in elementary school.
There's a bunch of people...
And John Arbuckle drinks dog cum.
There's a bunch of people that are like petitioning to stop having Columbus Day.
Oh, it's never going to happen. Italians love that shit.
Colombo. That's not Italian.
That's not Italian
Yeah.
at all.
The real answer, and this is kind of opinion, because obviously we, at least like us as North Americans, have a very Eurocentric view on history before colonization of the Americas. But one of the biggest like devastation events that happened was between 1340 and 1400, roughly. It was the Black Death, which is what they called the bubonic plague. It killed a shitload. Like, and I actually did a bunch of reading on this because I found it super interesting. But like, there are theories from historians that one of the reasons why warfare had a huge spike there was because people valued life much less than they did before.
Because just literally everyone was dying. Wasn't it? I remember this now from the Ratatouille movie. It wasn't the rats that caused the plague. It was the fleas on the rats.
Yeah.
That carried the plague.
Exactly.
That's what the rats want you to believe. They're like, the fleas came in on our fur and killed our people. But no. The bubonic plague was an inside job.
MAGA. Okay. Anyways, I recommend people look up the Black Death on its own, because by the way, the bubonic plague still exists in some places in Africa. Like, it's not totally wiped out.
Oof, that's a fun fact for the world. There.
But also, just like more interestingly, is the fallout of something like that. Like, imagine if 2/3 of North America just died in the course of one generation. That would fuck so many things. All right. My grandpa died of the Black Plague. No, I didn't.
It's crazy because like it was a third of Europe, but also there was so much less people back then.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure I could look up the numbers and it would still be like an enormous amount of people.
And then there was significantly
it's super
less.
staggering that like just because it wiped out several thousand people and that permanently altered the face of the whole continent because of how many people were dead.
Yep, pretty much. It also, like, it exists all over the world, and I just don't have as much of, like, a point of reference for that, but it didn't originate in Europe. It came from the East, right?
Yeah, because the rats snuck onto the ship, and the fleas were on the rats in the rattling bogged down in the valley,
Oh, God. She's speaking in tongues.
Oh, no, Mikhail, I accidentally turned on my camera. She's taking on the aspects of the flea. Her mandibles. They're horrible. Horrible mandibles.
Bogged down in the valley.
I want to hear an episode where it's just, like, just you two, and I'm not there. And I bet someone would, like, literally die. Like, actually die in real life. Because this is insane. If I don't talk for 3 minutes, it just, like, it devolves into, like, just gobbledygook. Okay. Brayden, what is a flea circus sensory deprivation tank? That's another callback.
Well, a flea circus sensory deprivation tank is when you fill up an entire chamber just about 3 inches deep, 3 inches wide with, or that's not very much, 3 feet, 3 feet by 3 feet, full of dead and living fleas. And you just get right in there and just curl up in the fetal position and just listen to the fleas just skitter over you. The chitin just brushing over your body.
Mikhail, you gotta be chill.
Oh, stop kiting around the answer, Brayden. So, the flea circus, and this kind of fucked me up a bit because I had like a Cassie moment where I didn't know how I felt about it in a weird way. it was people. So it started off as like watchmakers in the 1500s, or at least that's like one of the first recorded evidence of it, where they'd be like, listen, I can make shit so fucking small a flea could wear it. And they would literally put stuff on fleas to prove how awesome they were at making tiny shit.
Like, wait, literal fleas?
Literal fleas. Anyways, this evolved over time into what's called the flea circus, which is, a circus is a series of acts all contained within one tent or area or whatever, right?
Oh, that's what it is. I was wondering what that was.
All right. A little too sassy, I think, for the last question. Okay, so the first actual recorded flea circus was in the 1820s, but it was things like they would glue something super big to a flea, and then it would like walk around with it, and it's like, look, the strongman flea. Or like they would put a ball in front of a flea and they would chain it to the ground, and then they would prod the back of the flea, and the flea would jump into the ball, and it looked like the flea was kicking the ball into a goal or something, when in reality it's just, bouncing and hitting the ball.
Oh my fucking god, people were so bored before we invented the internet.
I want to read you this from an article I found. So, there are historical reports of fleas being glued to the base of the flea circus enclosure. Miniature musical instruments were then glued to the flea performers, and the enclosure was heated. The fleas fought to escape, giving the impression of playing instruments.
Torturing tiny animals for our own pleasure.
It's fucked, but then at the same time, it's fleas. So it's like, I don't really know how I feel about it.
Really funny. I just the image of a very tiny, like the size of a period, little bug with like a cup glued to its back.
Later on, it actually became, and this is kind of what I thought it was before I did my research, people would show off a flea circus, but instead of real fleas, it would be like these cool electrical gadgets that would make things move, even though they looked like they weren't supposed to move, they would move. And it's like, oh, damn, it's almost like a magic trick, but there's no real fleas involved. And that was my exposure to it before doing this. So it seemed a lot less like horrifyingly sociopathic. And yeah, anyways. So let's talk about flea sex. There wasn't a lot I could find about mating, like flea mating specifically.
Yeah, because they're very small and they don't like to do it in front of people.
And like I'm finding as I research this stuff, it's like some people, it's just like, or some animals rather, it's like people just don't give a fuck. Like they're not going to spend the time learning about it because there's no like point. So when it's things like researching snakes to like develop anti-venom, it's like, yeah, super useful. Researching like how the P of the flea goes into the V of the flea, that's a lot of work for something that probably no one gives a shit about. I'm not saying it's never been observed. I'm saying it's never been researched.
It's only been observed by very specific scientists.
With very specific fetishes.
Rigorous lab conditions.
All right, tell us about that flea sex.
The mating of fleas pretty much always happens on the host body. So like the body that they're living on.
They have to drink the blood first.
Well, that's part of it. Like I said,
so on me.
One of the more common flea species is called the cat flea, which is like obviously fleas that attaches to cats. But there's been a lot of research done on them just because they're again a vector for disease, and because, hey, there might actually be a point to studying fleas that affect animals that we keep as pets. Anyways,
domestic.
They found that the fleas latched on. So the male flea approaches the female flea and latches on with what they called erect antennae and claspers. And they'll do that until they're done having sex with the female, which can last. And I don't understand, like, I feel like this is just like numbers that encompass all the data, but it says 2 to 157 minutes. Which is like, I don't see what the point of like naming that exact number is, but I guess whatever.
I know. There was like one bored scientist who was like, I need to track this.
The other thing to note about the sex too is that the females will actually mate with many males to achieve what I read multiple times as maximum fertility, which is a pretty good like feminist band name. Maximum fertility. But yeah, so basically just like pump as much sperm into me as possible because I'm about to lay a buttload of eggs, and I hope they're all fertile or all inseminated, or what I want to call it. So that was the flea. Not super interesting, except for the flea circus thing really blew me away, I think. Hypothetical question of the week. Would you rather have the jumping ability of the flea or the compound eyes of the dragonfly? Now, the details here are
the compound
eyes.
Miguel kind of garbled that one.
You're still a human, right? So like you'll just be yourself, but you'll have either this innate ability to jump 50 times the length of your body, or you can see in almost every direction and you can take in like way more information than you would otherwise, and you can see two spectrums that humans can't see.
I've got a pretty long body.
Yeah, Braden's like a snake. And like you're not like gonna be hurt. How about like you have the way, like if you have the big eyes, you have the way of protecting the big eyes. You have the way to land safely after a jump. Okay, how about we all say our answers at once, and then we can pick on the one person who picks
Okay,
differently.
so I'll go 3, 2, 1, and then you either say flea or dragonfly. Ready? 3, 2, 1, flea.
Flea.
Oh,
Yeah.
unanimous.
Unanimous is the one first time we all agreed.
Because, like, right? That's pretty much the closest we'll ever get to personal flight as human beings.
Also, guys, our quads and butt will look so good with that jumping muscle.
Oh my god.
Just rippling
Right?
with jumping power.
Now I'm just imagining just the hard, good butts that come out of squats.
Yeah.
Do you think that you would be like a wildly good artist or like some kind of like fucking amazing poet or something though if you had those compound eyes where you could
Probably
see
not,
stuff
because
that
you said we would still
humans
have to
can't
be our
see?
normal selves. And as I am currently not some amazing artist or beautiful poet.
I think you'd have to put it through. I don't think you'd be able to describe
And also
it
going
properly.
to the movies
I
would suck
think
because you're only using half of your eyes to watch the movie and the other half to gaze at like the stupid blank expressions on the people sitting behind you.
Really, Tessa,
Right.
that's what you're latching on to.
I mean, I feel like you could be a badass superhero with that level of high jumping. You couldn't be a badass superhero with a good with 360
Plus they would
vision.
like ooze
extra
out
color.
of your head.
Okay, here, just to be clear, just let me clear up some other details. You're not jumping 50 times the length of your body, you're leaping. So you're not getting more than 5 or 6 feet off the
What?
ground, but you are traveling, and because that's how it works with fleas. They don't jump straight up, they jump forward. I said the jumping ability of the flea.
Back in the whole flea bit.
Are we
talked
really
about
having this
which
argument?
animal is a better jumper?
Okay, but like if I ran into a wall, would I get squished?
No, your legs would protect you.
Well, like if you jumped into a wall now from a standing position.
But like I'm not traveling 50
Oh, I see what you're
times
saying,
my
like because
body
of the
length.
speed and momentum. Yeah, no, whatever physical damage would happen to you.
Before this, we prefaced saying that you would be able to land safely.
Well, this was maybe another caveat, which I kind of decided against earlier, but like, what if you had to always jump 50 lengths? You didn't have a choice of less than that.
Then both of these answers would suck.
Yeah.
Because you couldn't even compete in the long jump, because it's like
you couldn't walk to the bathroom doing like a 7-point turn to back out of a really tight parking spot. Also, I feel like fleas can crawl. If fleas can get like cups glued to the back of them, fleas know how to crawl.
you only have the jumping ability. You still keep your human walking ability.
Yeah, I definitely...
The more we talk about it, the more I think I would do the dragonfly, actually.
God, Mikhail, just drink the dog cum and become friends with us already.
Hey, how dare you? Me and Mikhail are absolute besties.
Mikhail always threatens to quit the podcast or end the call when you start to sing, Brayden. He hates your singing.
I mean...
Would a
Yeah,
real
that's true.
friend
Yeah, that's true.
hate your singing?
I think anyone would, to be honest. I think his own mother probably would end the call. Let's get real. Well, we do agree on one thing, all three of us, which is who the funniest member of the
God.
Animorphs podcast is. Ooh, Brayden, I don't know if you're referring to yourself as God here or what's going on exactly.
What?
But the answer is it's Brayden.
I mean...
Oh.
Well...
Turned it on its head.
Brayden's not the funniest one.
I turned it on its head, though. Now you have to fight to the
Like,
death.
I feel like none of us are the funniest ones.
It's the secret fourth Fanimorph.
It's the fourth host that we keep locked in the basement.
Darby.
Egger. No, I like Darby a lot. That's very good.
Darby's the one who gives us our animal facts.
He passes them on an old, crumpled piece of skin.
Darby's favorite Animorph is Jake, because none of us care that much about him.
Darby's favorite Animorph is Eric King. He doesn't like any of the original Animorphs. He only likes the dog droid.
Darby is exactly the piece of our puzzle that's been missing this whole time. Darby's favorite Animorph is Jake, because we don't feel strongly about Jake, honestly, in either one way or the other. Also, Darby is also the one who runs our Pinterest and LinkedIn accounts.
Oh, that's true. We get so many fans from Pinterest.
I know, but we never hear from them in the fan mail section because Darby is
illiterate.
It's a real problem for the
He
cast.
posts these Fanimorphs inspired recipes, and that's his LinkedIn account. It's really messed up.
But they're just sketches.
God, Darby. But he's the funniest one on the podcast, so.
Darby would argue against that.
Darby would definitely do that.
I know, because Darby is actually funny and modest and humble, unlike anyone else on this cast. Next week, we'll be talking about Animorphs number 22, and the following week, we'll be talking about the morphs from that book. Where can you find more of our stuff, Tessa?
Oh, you can find more of our stuff on our podcast page at collectivelegacy.org, and we've also got Twitter, Tumblr, Instagram, Facebook. We make memes. We think they're funny. Please think they're funny.
Braden, where can people subscribe to our show?
You can go to iTunes and hit that subscribe button, and anywhere else fine podcasts are sold. Also, if you find a tin cup and leave it in a crossroads with a note saying you want to subscribe to our podcast under it, Darby will find it.
And one day, he'll figure out how to type a password into a computer so he can subscribe you to our show. For the Fanimorphs, I've been Mikhail, the host.
I'm Tessa, the expert.
And I'm Braden, and I think Darby is my father.
And this has been Live from the Gardens, a Fanimorph podcast about how to be a convincing Animorph. I like how you wove in the Darby bit so that I couldn't cut it out entirely. God damn it.
What do you want to eat right now? Jinx.
I'm Mitch.
And I'm Sophie. And this is
We Watch Food,
a podcast all about the food we like to watch.
We'll talk all about the best, the craziest, and the tastiest TV, movies, and YouTube channels.
Not to mention trendy food fads and sumptuous food trivia.
Plus, we end every episode with a recipe from one of us.
So join us every Saturday for a new episode and a new insight into what makes us watch so much food.
You can find us at collectivelegacy.org, as well as a bunch of other awesome podcasts.
Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at We Watch Food.
And on Twitter at We Watch Food Pod. So I've been Mitch.
I'm Sophie.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Brought to you by
Collective Legacy.
a podcast network.